I'm Kelly Sexton, Associate Vice President for Research, Innovation Partnerships, and Economic Impact here at the University of Michigan. And I'm just really delighted to welcome you all here today. This is sort of the high water mark of the year for me and my team. We put a lot of heart and soul into bringing this event together, and we're just delighted that you're all here to share in it with us. So thank you so much for being here. The University of Michigan's position as a leader for innovation, commercialization, and positive economic and social impact would not be possible without our incredibly talented faculty and staff who are constantly pushing the boundaries of knowledge and technology, who work tirelessly to ensure that their discoveries have an opportunity to leave a great mark upon the world. Each year, we hold this event, Celebrate Invention, to honor those who help propel our university and our community forward into the future with their research, their innovations, their vision, their startup companies. It is with this thought of ingenuity and showcasing and celebrating success that the Distinguished University Innovator of the Year Award was created. This is the University of Michigan's highest honor for faculty who have developed transformative ideas and helped to bring them to market. This year's recipient of the Distinguished University Innovator of the Year Award is Dr. Kevin Ward. And Dr. Ward exemplifies this spirit, and he will be formally receiving his award in the reception later this afternoon. To kick off this year's Celebrate Invention, we will first be having a brief presentation from Kevin that distills his career's journey into a short presentation to give us an overview of his journey as a faculty innovator who has constantly been pushing the boundaries of what is possible. We will then transition to a panel discussion with two of his esteemed collaborators before moving to a networking reception at 4 p.m. So to get us started, I would like to introduce Dr. Ward, who is a professor in the departments of emergency medicine and biomedical engineering, as well as executive director of the Weil Institute for Critical Care Research and Innovation. In addition to his numerous recognitions, he was also recently elected as a fellow to the National Academy of Inventors. Dr. Ward is being recognized for his significant contributions to the university's culture of entrepreneurship, as well as his numerous innovations in critical and intensive care. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Kevin Ward.
Okay, are there any questions? So I'm told I get 10 minutes. Might take 11, or Kelly may mute my mic. So I've entitled this A Simple Country ER Doctor's Journey to this award, or Why Great Teams Matter. And I really want to put the emphasis on teams. This is a short list of the people I need to thank: my wife, my daughter Abigail, my son Avery, and I will say, if anyone tells you not to take your work home, disregard that advice. So they have been a part of this journey and just constantly asking me and are fascinated about what the great things that we're doing here at Michigan and how they're going to be transformative. I want to thank my former chairs, Dr. Newmar, recently former chair of the Department of Emergency Medicine here, Joe Arnotto at Virginia Commonwealth University. And for those of you out there deciding to join a department and you're looking for what the right fit is, it's not necessarily important that your chairs always say yes to what you want. It's important that they don't say no. That means that's an implicit yes. And then the fantastic teams I work with, a cast of hundreds that make the impossible possible. The Weil Institute, Fast Forward Medical Innovation, Innovation Partnerships, certainly my fellow collaborators, and the U.S. Army and military. So my journey, if you've ever seen this strange movie, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, is about living in a parallel universe. I've lived in a couple of parallel universes, and I've been at all these places. I've been at the right place at the right time, right place at the wrong time, the wrong place at the right time, the wrong place at the wrong time. And for each of those, though, I've been able with the right teams to overcome and finally be in the right place at the right time. So to your right there is my first invention developed at Ohio State University. It was a tube you put down into the stomach through the mouth, and a balloon would blow up, and you would clamp the aorta, that's the major vessel that carries blood, between your stomach and your spine to prevent massive hemorrhage. And I got this awarded. I went to the Army and says, this is the worst idea ever. Okay, that was well over 20 years ago. The patent is expired. Now the Army gave us $4 million a couple of years ago saying this is the best idea ever. And so again, it's all about sticking with it. These were my real motivators to really, so I invented this thing at Ohio State University. My first academic job was at Henry Ford, but I didn't really, not a great ecosystem, innovation ecosystem to work with. And then a couple of things happened. One was the near postpartum hemorrhage death of my wife, Allison, and which prompted us to move to Richmond, Virginia to be closer to family or to get more family close to us. And then 9/11 and the global war on terror. So those are two things that sort of really changed my journey. And of course, with the global war on terror, we saw these just horrific wounds we've not even seen in World War II or the Vietnam War, where you really needed some simple as well as science fiction solutions. So I was at the Medical College of Virginia, which was starting an emergency medicine program, and I became the inaugural research director. You had to have a research director there. And Medical College of Virginia has been there since the 1880s. It's one of the oldest medical schools in the country, but it became a university, Virginia Commonwealth University, joining a small teachers college. But not much had been done. The main campus was, they were both downtown, but separated by about 2 miles. Could have been separated by a couple of states for all that matter, because each just did what they did. This picture down the bottom was a brand new school of engineering that opened up. And all these things happened, and I said, I got to get in there and see what we can do. And so I met interesting people like Keyvan Najarian. Many of you know I helped recruit him to VCU. He's one of the AI gurus here at the university. And I got into this like more than multidisciplinary, but this concept of transdisciplinary work where people outside your field would invest time to learn more about it. And at the same time, for me, like I wasn't engineering heavy, but I really spent a lot of time reading about computer science and mechanical engineering and AI. And it made things much easier to move forward. And we did some interesting things there. We developed our own sort of innovation ecosystem, and that led to some important discoveries. So we're responsible, played a major role in the development of combat gauze, which is this, you see on the right here. That's the major hemostatic agent used by the US military and actually around the world. Saved thousands and thousands of lives. I can't say we cut a very good deal for me because I'm here still. But you know, it's not always thinking better outside the box, it's thinking better inside the box. There's a great interesting story there. And we scaled that so the compound, or a cousin of the compound that's used in combat gauze is now major component of Cook Medical's hemo spray. And these are basically kitty litter and a derivative of kitty litter called kaolin that are responsible for developing these powerful hemostatic effects. So you can do, this was just organic, it wasn't university supported. We begged for university support and couldn't get it, but you can do great things. Seemed like a good idea at the time, but after my kids left college, I'd done all this stuff interfacing with the DoD. I wanted to do more. My kids went to college, and my commanding officer gave me permission. Allison is my commanding officer, gave me permission. She knew how much I wanted to do it. So in 2019, while I was here, I enlisted in the U.S. Army Reserves, commissioned as a lieutenant colonel, got assigned to a forward resuscitation surgical detachment so I could use my emergency medicine skills. In the middle, that's me in Afghanistan getting ready to go out on a mission. To the far right there is me in the middle of the night at Bagram, the fabled Air Force Base, leaving in the middle of the night with Taliban all surrounded us, and so it was sort of a surprise. We left in the middle of the night. But you could call that the ultimate in customer discovery. So I cherish the idea. I was motivated by people I knew, two of which are in the audience, retired Colonel Ethan Miles and Pete Schul. We spun a company off, you'll see later. But this also got me thinking about teamwork, and I always thought we needed an innovation creed to battle disease. And to your left is the Soldier's Creed, and there's some great things that are applicable if you really want to get the job done. One is that it is a battle. You got to be in it. And if you're really trying to solve a problem, and so we are a team. It's really the team. The mission comes first. Competence is critical. And so when I went out with these teams, I didn't care what color you were, who you loved, what you did during the day. I cared about one thing, that you were competent, we could do the job, and we were all committed to the mission. And that's what you really care about with your teams here as you battle disease. And I learned something, you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And so I think some of the greatest breakthroughs are when you kind of step out into your field, make a commitment to collaborate. And again, I say you're either all in or you're all out. If you're not all in, it's going to take you a much longer journey. It's going to be much bumpier. And remember, the only easy day was yesterday. So developing a team, one of the things I may have committed to, or might be remembered for, as a sort of a general rule, is it's about winning hearts and minds. So when I got here in 2012 to develop what's now the Weil Institute, I spent hundreds of hours before I hit the ground here going through literally maybe 1,000 websites. So everyone who might have a skill set that I could bring to critical illness and injury, and this included hundreds of websites in the College of Engineering, and then having hundreds of in-person meetings. So there's no alternative to a good ground game. And I would show them these pictures here. So you've got a wounded soldier, you've got an adult in the ICU, and you've got this preemie on your right that you can hold in the palm of your hand literally. And I said, your skill set, if you could commit and entertain working with us in critical care, your next discovery or invention could help this range of people. Okay, it could be a platform technology. And so this problem is worthy of your talents, because we had some of the smartest people in the world at Michigan. They can work on any problem they want. And so our job was to convince them to devote their talent towards this range of problem. But along with that, you have to make it easy for them to engage, right? So there's a different culture in engineering and medicine. We get up at the different times. It's hard to get a meeting with an engineer, by the way. No offense, like at 6 a.m., right? And so, but you need to support high risk, high reward. So something that might be, as simple as, it might be a drawing on the back of a cocktail napkin, but you've got to move it forward, and there's got to be some bootstrapping, and then of course seeing it through. So I'm going to show you this video here, which explains it better than I did, but with a team developed this model that's been highly successful. And I'm told him this will work, okay?
He's a doctor, and he has a great idea for a tool that will help him treat critically ill and injured patients. But he doesn't have the expertise to build this tool. This is Maria. She's a biomedical engineer and an expert in computation and modeling. She can build the tool, but she doesn't know what clinical outputs healthcare providers are looking for. And this is Paul. While he's not a doctor or a researcher, he does have the financial means and desire to help make a difference in critical care. But as a potential donor, he wants to ensure that his money will be put to good use. So how can innovative doctors like Ben meet engineers like Maria and donors like Paul? We are the Weil Institute for Critical Care Research and Innovation at the University of Michigan. We connect researchers from different disciplines and help them get their innovative research from the bench to the bedside. But that's only part of it. We've connected Ben and Maria, yet having a great idea isn't enough. They're going to need access to the right tools and resources before their idea can become a reality. That's the Weil difference. As Institute members, Ben and Maria have access to funding through our Grand Challenge competition, which funds high-risk, high-reward proposals thanks to donors like Paul. They're also able to work one-on-one with our proposal development team to help them win additional grants to get their research over the finish line. They can conduct their research in our specialized labs and have access to our big data analytic platform. And they can work with our data scientists, who are experts in machine learning and predictive medicine. To keep them on track, they'll work with our commercialization coaches, who will help them navigate the world of patents, FDA regulations, and ensure they're meeting their milestones. We'll even introduce them to industry partners to help accelerate their research. So whether you are a researcher, business partner, or donor, we're ready to connect you with people just like Ben and Maria. And together, we can change the way critical care is delivered to save patient lives. This has been...
So what you saw here was the secret to our success was creating this sort of ecosystem that was specific to critical illness and injury, had a lot of commonalities across other programs, but then partnered with key innovation partners within the ecosystem, innovation partnerships, fast forward medical innovation. But this really lowered the energy barrier, and our tagline is transforming critical care through innovation, integration, and entrepreneurship. It is a totally unique model in academia. And these are some of our metrics. So we publish a lot of papers, we bring in a lot of grant money, but if you look at the amount of intellectual property, licensed products, startups, venture funding, and this FDA approval process, this is pretty impressive. And I don't even think we've reached our stride yet. But this is, again, motivating, sort of soup to nuts, keeping people their eye on the ball and seeing it all the way through. We did such a good job that the family of Max Weil, who by the way ended up being a biomedical engineer graduate here at the University of Michigan in the 1930s, widely recognized as the father of critical care, developed the first ICU in the country in the 1950s at the University of Southern California. It developed and founded the Society for Critical Care Medicine. Incredible guy, actually one of the first entrepreneurs in critical illness and injury. He died in 2011, but his family foundation found us and endowed our center for $10 million. And we gladly renamed this because his family says this was his dream. But I also want to call out fast forward medical innovation. So about halfway through, I think in 2015, I was approached by the Dean Williscroft at the time and Misher under Ton Shanley's leadership. And my chair, again, Bob Newmar, did not say no. They asked me to help develop a team called Fast Forward Medical Innovation. And this was how can we do more and sort of reset and recalibrate the value system, at least in Michigan medicine. And so part of this was to change the culture. And we did customer discovery at first, and people said like, faculty were like, my chair doesn't value this. I have to get tenured. It's going to take too long to do this. So we said, well, okay, let's change promotion and tenure guidelines. So we did some nice things, and with this team, change promotion, tenure guidelines. This concierge ecosystem to lower the energy barrier to innovation resulted in a significant increase in invention disclosures, patents, and licenses, a much leaner, better way to interact with industry colleagues. And we've trained thousands of students and faculty with commercialization education. I almost say this is akin to fracking for innovation. So the thing is, there was really no energy crisis here. We had tons of energy, we just didn't know where to find it. We have plenty of innovation here. It's actually, you've just got to create the process to get to it and make it easier to come out from the university. So universities are supposed to be the engine for innovation, and so I would say it holds true. So you got to make it easy for faculty, but you've got to do things in the general ecosystem to get that stuff to flow out accordingly. So what do we do? What do we value? What should we do? I think we still have a little bit more work to do. It frustrates me that universities sometimes confuse rankings with impact. And I think the tech transfer into the things is more of a measure of impact. when we fall a couple of spots in NIH rankings, at least in the medical schools, like all hands on deck. Well, you know what happened. I would rather us concentrate on getting those discoveries out to market. So we need to really make innovation and entrepreneurship an expected and natural academic behavior by creating more programs that sort of empower that. We really need to support team science. So we say the team, but we really don't know how to fund centers and institutes at a level that help them realize an economy of scale. If it were up to me, I would abolish all departments would only exist for teaching and clinical care purposes, but everyone doing research would be in a center or institute or more than one. So there you get that collaboration. There's always this tension between innovation and entrepreneurship. I mean, innovation is like your mom saying, dream big, child, realize your dreams. And entrepreneurship is your dad saying, you got to get out of the basement. You can't live here. You just got to get going with this. So, we need to view conflict of interest as more of a convergence of interest. We all have a stake in this. I'd love to see the dream come true that Michigan would have its own $200 or $300 million venture fund to invest in its own technologies, managed at arm's length. I'd love to see, we have this problem here about not being first customer. And so that makes it difficult when you've got an innovation and venture fund to say, well, what's Michigan doing with it? And it's like, wah, wah, wah. We have to kind of get creative. And for those of you out there who are afraid to collaborate, all I can say is the math of innovation is 100% of 0 equals 0, okay? That's the only innovation math you need to know. In my last slide here, these are examples of upcoming products, some FDA approved. In the middle of testing, you'll see this breath analyzer that can detect COVID, it can diagnose ARDS, cancer, AeroSolve, this new piece of personal protective equipment, a simple tourniquet, which is first tourniquet made just for civilians, and one of the FDA's first approved AI products with a predictive endpoint associated with it. Each of these is a fascinating story of heartbreak, intrigue, romance, tears, everything but even some lies, I could tell you. No sex or drugs at this point. But you could meet some of these innovators here and learn about these, but some of these were very long journeys. And it was about not taking no for an answer. And my last slide is, again, this is my team and its newest innovation, Joelle Allison on the right, and that's all I got. So thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. That was fantastic. And I hope for everyone in the audience, you get just a sense of what a thrill it is to get to work with Dr. Ward. He's really inspiring, and he's constantly pushing our team to think and dream bigger, and I'm very grateful to you for that. So I'd like to now ask Dr. Ward and our panelists to please come up on the stage for our panel discussion. Really something. I'd like to get started by asking our other panelists to please in turn introduce yourselves. Sridhar, if it's okay, and if you're able to figure out the mic, I'd love to ask you to please go first.
I've got a PhD in engineering, so that's why I have difficulty figuring this out. All right, I'm an Emeritus Professor of Engineering. After 34 years as a Professor of Mechanical Engineering, I retired 3 years ago, and I have a company, Fluxus, been around for many years. I founded it. That keeps me busy, and more recently, a medical device company that I founded and is serving as a CEO.
Fantastic, thank you. And I'd also like to mention that Sridhar is himself a prior Distinguished University Innovator of the Year award recipient. So very much a serial innovator and serial entrepreneur as well. Andrew.
Sure, yeah, thanks everyone for having me. Andrew Malcomson, I'm the CEO at Fifth Eye. I'm one of the graphics, although I guarantee you there was no romance involved in our company.
Not even a bromance?
That's inappropriate. Well, maybe a bromance, yeah. Anyway, so I've been here, I have 20 plus years in medical diagnostics and devices. I'm a recovering engineer, I tell people by training. Just prior to this joining Fifth Eye, I came out of a digital dental exit. It was over a $600 million deal. It was really, really fantastic. What was so exciting for me, though, to be presented with the opportunity to come back to sort of classical medical or digital health was, really the promise of what Dr. Ward and the team at originally MCirc and Weil invented. Because prior to that, I had spent about a decade at Medtronic and Covidien, all in patient monitoring, looking for the next big thing. And frankly, I'm pretty convinced and still am that Fifth Eye and AHI system is it. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, Andrew. And I understand you also have some other ties specific to the University of Michigan. Would you mind sharing those?
Sure, yeah, a little off script. So it's interesting, when I first told my family, my wife's family specifically, that I'd be spending more time in Ann Arbor working I live in Colorado, again, when I was with Medtronic for many years. My father-in-law played here. For Bo, he was a safety. Mark Brayman, for those of you who may know the name from the past. My mother-in-law was a cheerleader here in the same era, and my wife's cousin just graduated 2 years. He's in med school here now, but he was the starting center, Andrew Vestardis, for Michigan for the last few years. So yeah, I have a lot of Michigan ties, even though I'm a newbie to Ann Arbor.
No, we've been thrilled to have Andrew as a CEO of one of our most promising startup companies, and having those ties back to U of M was a really cool aspect of that story. So Kevin, you kind of touched on this a bit in your presentation, but I wonder if you could share a bit more about some of the changes that you've seen in the culture, in the infrastructure to support faculty innovators since you arrived here in 2012. And I know we still have a ways to go, and I wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of close on that. But if you could talk about some of the changes you've seen, that would be great.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. So I would say, again, my reference point was hitting the ground in 2012. So at VCU, I had figured out the ecosystem myself. And so I got here, I was very excited, especially having spent a lot of pre-groundwork learning what folks were doing here and looking for some quick wins. Because again, with the help of my chair and the dean, made a significant investment in developing what is now the Weil Institute. But as I sorted to navigate the system, I said, I can figure it out, but this would be pretty complicated for faculty to figure out. And so, again, building a machine that we could sort of test this, bring people into the medical field from engineering that weren't necessarily doing, medical work, and then getting them focused on this problem of critical care. And again, had great managing directors, Janine Centurion and Phil Jacokes, who are very business-minded and laid out this roadmap. And it got to be really easy. And so a lot of IP started going to what was then just the Office of Technology Transfer. Then with FFMI, trying to scale this. And I would say that each school and college within the university has its own culture. It's sort of its own value system and its own time constraints, right? So again, if you want an innovation coming out from a cardiothoracic surgeon, who every minute that person spends outside the OR, we're losing like tens of thousands of dollars, you've got to make it easy for them to want to do this and provide assets. And so again, changing those values, and although I'm not a super metrics guy, when you look at what was then from an innovation output, at least from Michigan Medicine, and what it is now, there's really very little comparison. I mean, even the business, the business model about doing industry research, which was never looked at very highly because it's not NIH money, and it used to be transactional, so industry pays you money to answer a question, you answer the question, they leave. It was more like, how can we partner for the long term to innovate your next generation products. I don't think at that time we had very many spin-offs, at least from the medical school. And so sort of changing the value proposition about why they should do it, why junior faculty especially should put their promotion and tenure at risk by not, focusing on the almighty R01 from the NIH. I think that that train's left the station. So we can only do better, but I would say there's not much comparison. You're bringing you in, I'll have to brag a little bit. I was on the search committee to bring Kelly Sexton in, and she, it was one of these hotel interviews. She had lost her luggage. She came in, sitting in front of this panel, and when I heard her Southern accent, I said, hired, got more, and I'm convinced that had something to do with it. But even your office has sort of we're very productive when I first got here, but this sort of transform, it's concierge services. It's making it easy and resetting the expectations about what we expect faculty to do. We expect faculty to change the world. They've got to take those discoveries and they've got to get them on a roadmap. And many times that's got, the innovation commercialization stuff has to be critical to that. And we do a much better job of that. And we still have a little bit of work to do, but it's totally different now.
I've spent a lot of effort trying to smother my Southern accent, but thank you for bringing that up, Kevin. But I do want to say, innovation partnerships has certainly undergone, a bit of a transformation, but I want to acknowledge I came in to an incredible, absolutely A+ team within tech transfer back when I was recruited. And I remember that airport interview and the opportunity to work with such an amazing group of people and help them, get the resources and the strategy to elevate their work. I came into a group that was already laser focused on faculty service. And so giving them the ability to execute on that vision has just been such a thrill. And I think we're seeing some of the impacts of that today. Andrew, the next question is for you. So as CEO of Fifth Eye, I'd love for you to tell us a bit more about the company, sort of its origin story, its current state, and your vision for its future, because I think it's incredibly exciting and, would love for the audience to hear more about it.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. And, maybe I should defer to some of the people who are here at the creation, but I'll tell it to the best of my recollection or my being informed. So, frankly, Fifth Eye was born, and the technology that was created was born out of clinical frustration, I think I'm fair to say. So there hadn't been breakthroughs in patient monitoring and the ability to assess an individual's, probability or possibility of deteriorating, decompensating, going into shock, and frankly, passing away for 50 years. It's really since pulse oximetry in the, again, literally 50 years ago last year, that there's been a breakthrough that actually moved the needle clinically in assessing patients and treating patients. Dr. Ward and the MCirc at the time led the charge in saying there's got to be something better, right? There's got to be a way. The information must exist. There must be a way to make it clinically utilizable. And that's where they really dove into heart rate variability analysis, right? Looking at your autonomic nervous system's compensatory engagement. How hard is your body working to fight or fend something off? Because that happens far in advance of any other measurable deterioration like BP or heart rate. So the science was there, the publications were there, but it was a long way from being clinically deployable or clinically utilizable at the bedside. So that's where they dove in and really tried to crack and solve that nut. The product that they ended up creating is called AHI, the analytic for hemodynamic instability, or like the fish, we always say. And again, it has the ability to sense patients' compensatory engagement far in advance of anything else. It was developed, hand in hand at the front line with the clinical staff at Michigan Medicine, and as the story goes, with huge volumes of pizza and coffee, encouraging the clinical staff on the front line to annotate data set after data set after data set to train the machine learning model to make it usable. And so that's really how it all began. And then, some of the founders who are in this room, you'll meet, later today, left supposedly with your endorsement, Kevin, I'm not sure, but either. left, and we're some of the founders of Fifth Eye, and with the goal to clear it with the FDA and commercialize it and bring it out there. Here we are, 3 FDA clearances later, 1 a de novo, which is an agonizing exercise if anyone has ever had to go through that, and 2 other FDA or 510Ks. And now we're actively commercializing the product, right? Because we feel that this technology, as simple, as inexpensive, as sort of all-cause tracking as it is, should be on every patient that requires it in the hospital, which is almost every patient in the hospital. And soon we will be taking it home as well. So in 2025, we'll have a home care clearance again, so you can very simply and remotely monitor these patients with hours of advance notice of a problem so that they can, as we say, walk to visit their GP rather than take an ambulance ride to the ED. And that's really the goal.
I just want to add, that is an example. So heart rate variability has been around for 40 years. And this is the first FDA-approved product with heart rate variability. But our work on this actually began at VCU. So it's one of these long journeys. So about 18 years ago, and Kayvon Najarian, I don't think he's here, but we started to look at this, and we got to Michigan. That patent is the product of a clinician, biomedical engineer, computer engineer, and a mathematician, okay, all from Michigan. So it was really a unique setup with the team, and then using these resources, which included just a lot of manpower to make this possible. So it's one of these things like you just have to commit and just see it through. And I think we see victory, within sight.
No, the progress you've been making is just, really exciting, Andrew. So thank you for that. Sridhar, the next question is for you. So we've heard a little bit about the role of coffee and pizza in bringing together engineers and clinicians. I wonder if you could speak to your experience as a Michigan engineer in, playing a role in healthcare innovation, how you've built bridges and collaboration with clinicians, and sort of what that's meant for you in your career.
First of all, the example, what Kevin put together with the Weil Institute, you all know the stories, you saw the numbers, it's incredible. We're connecting people together. But more broadly about how that happens, I'll cut to my story later on, but thinking back, 30 plus years in College of Engineering and how, there's so much opportunity for engineers and medical professionals to collaborate and do the innovation, that normally it happens is where you have some faculty members from, medical school have a challenge looking for a solution, or the other way around, the faculty members, some of them from engineering, where solutions they're looking for problems. And I was one of them where years ago had this idea of a bio-inspired mechanical design paradigm for designing flexible, strong, mechanical systems without joints, and I thought that could be a platform technology for all kinds of applications in surgery. So I went to Department of Surgery website and then didn't know anyone, looked at the faculty list, and then picked the first guy on the list, Dr. Juan Arenas, starts with an A. I called him, he picked up the phone, and I talked, and then we met for 2 hours, and he gave me 8 ideas to work on. We did some pretty cool minimally invasive surgery-related kidney transplant device, and he moved on somewhere else. But I continued the work with his colleagues. I did a number of projects for our senior capstone design course. But the point I want to make here is that, so we had different degrees of success with those projects. And a lot of times these students that's in their senior year, the graduating semester, that's when they take the course, so there's not much time for follow-up. What would be really nice, I think, if we, at the grassroots level, while we have wonderful Weil Institute doing all the connections, but at the grassroots level, if you could get the freshmen engaged. You all heard about Solar Car project. I'm sure everybody heard of that. There are many more like that in College of Engineering, Solar Car being just one. We have incredible facilities, and there are some students excited about solar cars, some on drones and aircraft and robots, different things. But I think they don't know about these opportunities on, improving the healthcare outcomes. That's something I believe, no, some people are excited about solar cars, not everybody, but I think most people would be excited about working on something medical related. So this is where I think if you could tap into their, passion, these are the kids who actually are passionate about design and building, and then they do that on their own time, no credit for no credit. So if you can tap into their passion, inspire them about these opportunities, so these creative young minds, you can get them to do this before they go out into Wall Street and destroy the world. You can capture them to do these important problems. I think, speaking of pizza, actually, if you could give a 30-minute pitch to them and bring some pizza, and I think it's amazing how, over the course of 4 years, what they can do and how these things could evolve. I think that's another way to enhance the collaboration at the grassroots level between the two disciplines.
Yeah.
Well, I would just follow. So to Sridhar's point, right, again, getting sort of early stage development, one thing I'll brag about, so we have about 200 members in Weil, but over 30% are engineers, data scientists, basic scientists, so they're not clinicians. And one thing we did set out to do, so we have a T32, an NIH T32 training program, which you're trying to train a new generation of this or that, but this is a T32 training program for doctoral students in engineering to do acute and critical care engineering. So you've got to make some really ground level investments. So if you want transformation in your field, you have to look just beyond medicine, right? So I just get excited about engineering and medicine, the collaborative. And go back to your original question, one thing that I do think has transformed over the last 12 years is the number of engineering and medicine collaborations across the university, I think, have exploded. It's now just sort of a natural thing. We're blessed to have both campuses in the same, or both colleges in the same campus. That's a disadvantage for other universities that have their undergraduate and graduate schools separate from their medical schools. So again, sort of getting these, but making it intentional and more strategic, I think is important.
And having a biomedical engineering program, I think, has been, hugely impactful in helping to facilitate the collaboration. So Sridhar and Kevin, this next question is for you. And so one of the images you had on the final slide was, I believe, products from one of your more recent startup companies, AeroSolve. And so AeroSolve was, if I'm recalling correctly, created sort of in the depths or maybe at the height of the pandemic, and it was created in response to an urgent unmet medical need. So I think the story provides a nice example of collaboration between clinicians and engineers. So could you, you'll have to decide who goes first, but could you tell us how the collaboration came to be, what the products are, and describe the state of the company, because I think there's been some really exciting progress there.
Kevin, chime in if I go on and on. So this was in March 2020 when, we were all scared and the hospitals were flooded with COVID-19 patients. And there's an urgent plea from physicians here looking for ways to contain the virus spread and to protect healthcare workers. So there was an email sent out, and I volunteered without understanding health stuff, but wanted to do something. And the same day, actually, I talked to my daughter about this negative pressure rooms, and we brainstormed for like 8-10 minutes, and we thought we could contain the virus, just put a helmet, and we brainstormed and came up with the idea of putting a helmet, and then whatever the contaminated exhaled air, we can suck it through a vacuum, through a HEPA filter, and okay, well, that seems like should work, and I was a little scared, but the next day I called Dr. Ward. The reason I called Kevin, this is important, I met him about 10 years ago or so when we were doing the fast forward medical innovation. We talked off and on once in a while, but always the first time I met him too, he's always in a fast forward mode, even now. He's always fast forward. So I thought he's the one to talk to. We talked the next day about this. And he not only encouraged me to move forward building a prototype, and I went to Emeritus and Target and bought some vacuum cleaners, and in fact, our early prototypes, they say a shark vacuum. So we put that together. He dropped off at 7 in the morning on his way back from emergency service there to drop off a nasal cannula or something. So that gives you something about how Kevin works. And anyhow, we put the prototypes together, prototype, and went to ER, and with Dr. Basson, Dr. Haas, Kevin, and others. They thought this is really going to work, and it's going to be the next best thing to vaccine. And I was shocked. This is something simple, straightforward idea. So it started off that way, and of course, I went to my company and I told them to, just start making, just make more helmets and systems, because not for business, it's just a moral obligation. This is March 2020. Do whatever you can to fight this thing. So we would drop them off. I would drop them off outside the emergency hospital by noontime, and by evening you get texts from these doctors about how they took this patient off a ventilator who's been on it for 14 days or whatever, and now he's had this helmet on, smiling, talking to his wife, and it's amazing. I could not have asked for anything more. You do something the night before, and then by afternoon you're helping patients, saving lives. So that was an incredible experience. And of course, Dr. Basson and others have done testing on inside the air ambulance and all kinds of things, and we put a lot of effort into doing all the testing, applying for the emergency use authorization. And the sad part is 6 months after we applied, no response, talked to FDA, what's going on? They said our brilliant minds at FDA decided in September 2020 that we're done with COVID, and so they stopped reviewing applications. This is September 2020. So they never reviewed our application until today. So anyhow, we try to get, by the way, through their network, doctors' network, we get dozens and dozens of requests from across the country, from overseas, the WHO, everybody calling up for this, but we could not send the helmets to anybody because there's no FDA approval. The reason they were able to do it at University of Michigan because of what they call the Innovative Care Protocol, and they issued that within a week after we had the demo in the emergency. And that's another thing. That kind of stuff, it happened so quickly because of Dr. Ward and maybe a few others, but it's him pushing it. That's how we got it through this university bureaucracy so quickly, within 1 week. So it was a great experience doing all that. And again, we couldn't get any manufacturer to make it because Ward is capable of doing this. They're too busy making masks. And we couldn't get much help beyond that, but I think on the positive side now, I must say that we got both NIH and CDC grants just last month to be able to take it all the way through FDA approval, so that's all good. But if I can take just 2 more minutes, important thing, throughout this whole process, it's important to point out that from your tech transfer office, there's one guy, he's always there to help, Jeremy Nelson. You call him anytime. He is the one who embodies the spirit of innovation, entrepreneurship, and product development. No matter what the question is, instead of telling you 5 different ways how it cannot be done, or it's not my job, that's not what my office does, he'll find at least one way to get it done. And he has always done it. And then your Weil Institute people have helped, speaking of NIH grants. Man, this is an incredible team you put together. Megan Ramsey, she's not here, I understand, but incredible help with the proposal. Not just writing, editing, coordinating the tasks, the people, and checking out the solicitation, make sure we didn't miss anything, just about everything, making the PI's job so much easier. So they allow your staff, Megan Benschrat, Kate Murphy, incredible work into the graphics. They did all the hard, heavy lifting, making it easier on the PI, just so PI can focus on what he or she is good at. So that's the kind of stuff we got to replicate, this kind of talent across the campus. So it was a great journey. We got a long ways to go. Now we're just getting started with the NIH.
Yeah, and I want to mention a couple of things to build off of that. The two grants he mentioned, one is they're both SBIRs, which are federal innovation grants to the company, non-dilutive. One is a direct to phase 2 from the NIH, which will be quite sizable, and the other is a phase 1 from the CDC. It's very rare to see two agencies willing to fund a single startup, so it really speaks to the importance of, I think, the products. And then I'll just also give a shout out to Jeremy Nelson. I remember when this project was bubbling up, and if you couldn't tell, sometimes Kevin gets really passionate about his projects. I don't know if that came through in the panel discussion, but I remember, I was in like my son's bedroom, it was a pandemic, and I was trying to have my home office, and I took a call from Kevin, and I called Jeremy. I was like, Dr. Ward's coming in hot. He's got a big idea and a big project. And Jeremy's just like unflappable. No problem, Dr. Ward, how can I help? How can I help? And so, like I said before, I'm just very fortunate we've got such an incredible team and innovation partnerships to help move these things forward. So Andrew, coming back to you a bit. So you've been a med tech executive, over the duration of, a really distinguished career. And, in that role, you've been at the forefront of commercializing and witnessing the commercialization of numerous medical innovations. Kind of focusing in on your more recent experiences with Fifth Eye, what insights or lessons learned can you share about moving these innovations forward and seeing that they, navigate the regulatory hurdles and are effectively adopted and integrated into clinical practice?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's hard. There's just no two ways around it. When you're a small company and you have something as good as it is, as breakthrough as it is, it's hard to penetrate the outer walls of medtech. It simply is. And, I came from the other side as well. When you're part of a big multinational, med tech device company, you can fund studies. You can find investigators to do some of this work for you. When you are a small startup, you don't have that leverage. You simply don't. So you have to find the right people. You have to find the right partners. You have to find the right, innovative people, innovative clinicians in our case, in these different institutions that are wired the right way and are willing to help, not just because there's a near-term return, because they actually are looking to achieve something meaningful and sort of move the needle in outcomes and move the needle in patient care. So that's really an important part. Once you get there, then you have to navigate their organizational hurdles. It's always hard, right? Because every customer you deal with, every institution you try to transact with or pilot with or evaluate with has resource limitations, funding limitations. They all have PTSD associated with failed projects of the past, without exception. So that's something else you need to get people to, not just the primary individuals you're working with, but get them to convince their extended teams that this is worth taking on. This is a sort of something that's really exciting and going forward. And that's when you get to the next challenge that you face, is the intellectual to operational translation or transition. It's not hard when you're working with something as exciting, as irrefutably useful as we are, that there's a there there, that it's something that they should pursue. But then getting it into nursing workflows, getting it into all their processes that they have refined and developed is challenging as well. So this just sort of layer after layer. But then finally, I would say the biggest piece of advice is once you do really get that right person, that right champion, that right institution, is listen. Because almost without exception, my experience both so far at Fifth Eye, but the other companies I've been with, is the assumptions that you came in with are almost always slightly or egregiously incorrect. The market tells you, customers tell you, how do they want to use this tool? What patients do they want to use this? What tool, how do they want to incorporate it into their workflows? All those sorts of things. So these great aspirations of it's perfect and this is how it'll roll forward, but they will tell you, customers tell you, the market tells you. You just absolutely have to be ready to listen.
Fantastic. Thank you, Andrew. Kevin, I want to be sure that we have time for this question because I think for me, it's been, really inspiring, to watch this journey. So you touched on this in your presentation about your time, being deployed in Afghanistan. And I kind of, I work with a lot of faculty, and I've seen a lot of, sabbatical leaves, and typically they might involve somewhere like Europe, California. When you had an opportunity to pursue something you were really passionate about and to dedicate yourself and your time, you chose to, enlist and to be deployed as a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army Medical Corps and its 948th Forward Resuscitation Surgical Team, deployed in Afghanistan. You touched on it in your presentation, but can you just tell us a bit more about, that decision and how it's shaped you as a faculty member, as a clinician, and I think also as a human?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So I did not use that as my sabbatical, just to be clear. Actually, the university said you could not use it as a sabbatical. But again, this is the importance of having support from the team, because it is logistically complicated when a faculty member leaves for deployment. So there are a handful of other great faculty members who, many of them inspired me, who enlisted. I just did this late. But it was because of a lot of my research interest, right? So I felt I wanted to do more. The time seemed to be right. My time, and I will be deploying again soon in January. But it is one of these things where you can choose to struggle through, or you can choose to use it as an opportunity to learn. So military is a very diverse organization. So I'm the old guy. There are young guys. There are young girls and older, more mature females on the team. So it's interesting to hear everyone's story. What motivated them? So they're part of my team. We have nurses, OR techs. We have detachment sergeants who are tasked with the defense of the unit. And everyone's got their own job, but you're cross-trained. But it's inspiring to see what's motivated. Now, for me as an emergency physician, I mean, my roughest day in the emergency department is nothing like out there in the field. So I've got access to everything, unlimited supplies and stuff like that. So again, when you get out there and there is no golden hour, there is no ambulance service or 911, you start thinking about, wow, can you really make an impact? So you can watch all the movies you want about. There's some truth in some of the movies. But I've got two Rangers here, former Rangers. So now if you get severely injured and you come to a trauma center or an emergency department, or sometimes in the ambulance, instead of getting salt water like normal saline, you're going to get whole blood. And that's a paradigm shift. We used to do that in World War I and World War II. But I, for example, had an opportunity to work with the Ranger Regiment, the 75th Ranger Regiment, to develop a walking blood bank. Doesn't seem to be super innovative. It's something we fast forwarded to the past to do, but it's saving thousands of lives. And so now on the battlefield, instead of storing blood, I'm storing blood right now. I know my blood type, and we know everyone's blood type. We will just stand up a walking blood bank. But there are other things. How do you control hemorrhage? Well, how do you control hemorrhage you can't put pressure on in your chest or your abdomen? How do you treat a severe traumatic brain injury? In case anyone's watched TV recently, like the world's on fire, right? And so we used to have air superiority and can control the landscape. Now when you're talking about peer-to-peer conflict with China and with Russia, for example, and you see what's going on in Ukraine, where it could take days to get a casualty out, that's where you really have to dig deep, get the best minds focused on the problem. So for me, I was doing my part, treating casualties, but also getting a great understanding about things I thought would be a good idea that I would use on the ground, like near the point of injury and in transport. When I come back, no, that's not gonna work. And so it's just been an inspiration to work with the men and women in uniform. And I'm just fortunate, again, my commanding officer and my family sort of gave me their blessing to do that. So.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that, Kevin. So I think with that, we are going to close out the panel discussion, but not to worry. Immediately following, we're going to be moving to a networking reception in the ballroom where there will be food, drink, and music, and a lot of great conversation. You will be hearing from me again and also from Dr. Ward in that event. And so without further ado, please join me in thanking and acknowledging this fantastic panel.
Thanks,